The shuttle Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace with a soft hum, and Morgan pressed her face against the viewport like a child seeing snow for the first time. Meridian Prime Station hung in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and light that stretched wider than any city on Earth. Thousands of ships floated around it like fireflies, each one carrying beings from worlds she had only read about in classified briefings. "There it is," said her brother Danny from the seat behind her. He was younger by 2 years, with the same brown hair and stubborn jaw that ran in their family. "The center of galactic politics. Try not to start a war in the first 5 minutes." Turned and gave him a look. "When have I ever started a war?" "Technically, 3 times during basic training." "Those were exercises, they don't count." Ben, their pilot, chuckled from the cockpit. He was a calm man in his 40s with gray at his temples and steady hands that had landed ships in conditions that would make most pilots cry. "Save the fighting for the tournament, you two. We're about to dock." Settled back into her seat and tried to calm her racing heart. She was 24 years old, a former Marine with combat experience on 3 continents, and Earth's first candidate for the Galactic Council's ambassador program. This was supposed to be a simple mission: attend the Trial of Valor, observe the proceedings, show the galaxy that humans could be trusted to participate in civilized society. Simple, easy, nothing could go wrong. The docking process took 20 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, stepped onto Meridian Prime and immediately felt the difference. The gravity was lighter here, maybe 70% of Earth normal. The air smelled strange, like copper and flowers mixed together, and everywhere she looked, she saw aliens. Real aliens, not pictures in a database, not grainy video footage from first contact. Living, breathing beings from dozens of different worlds, walking past her like she was just another face in the crowd. A creature that looked like a walking praying mantis clicked its mandibles at her. A blob of blue gel slid past on a hover platform. 2 beings made entirely of floating rocks drifted by, having a conversation in a language that sounded like gravel being crushed. Danny grabbed her arm. "Stop staring, you look like a tourist." "I am a tourist," whispered. "Danny, that thing has 14 eyes." 15, Danny corrected. "They have 15 eyes. I told you to read the cultural briefing." They made their way through the crowded corridors toward the registration chamber. Ben walked behind them, carrying their credentials and trying not to bump into anyone with more than 4 legs. The station was a maze of curved hallways and floating signs in languages couldn't read, but Danny had memorized the layout during the 3-week journey from Earth. The registration chamber was a massive circular room with a domed ceiling that displayed a live view of the stars outside. Hundreds of delegates filled the space, representing species from across the known galaxy. At the center stood a raised platform where a tall figure made of living crystal presided over the proceedings. High Arbiter was 9 feet tall and looked like someone had carved a statue from purple glass and then brought it to life. Light passed through his body and scattered into rainbows on the floor. His voice, when he spoke, sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Next delegation," he announced. Stepped forward. "Earth delegation requesting registration for the Trial of Valor." The room went quiet. Turned slowly, his crystalline face impossible to read. "Earth, the new species, the ones from the Death Planet." "We prefer to call it home," said, keeping her voice steady. "But yes, we're here to participate in the tournament." A murmur ran through the crowd. Heard whispers in a dozen languages, most of which she couldn't understand. But she caught a few words that Danny's translation software picked up: dangerous, primitive, monsters, threat. Raised one hand, and the room fell silent again. "The Council of Aligned Species has reviewed your application. After careful consideration, we have decided that humans will not be permitted to participate in the Trial of Valor." Blinked, "Excuse me. Your species originates from a Category 7, continued, his tone flat and official. Your planet has gravity that would crush most species. Your atmosphere contains a corrosive gas you call oxygen. Your world is covered in predators, parasites, and diseases that would exterminate any other sapient species within hours of exposure. You are, by biological definition, apex organisms. Allowing you to compete would constitute an unfair advantage and pose unacceptable risk to other participants. That's ridiculous, said. We're not here to hurt anyone. We're here to compete fairly just like everyone else. The decision is final. Turned away. Next delegation. No, his voice cut through the chamber like a knife. I'm not finished. The arbiter stopped. Slowly he turned back to face her. You dare challenge my ruling. Could feel Danny's hand on her arm, squeezing hard. She could feel Ben's tension behind her. She could feel the eyes of every alien in the room fixed on her, waiting to see what the primitive would do. She took a deep breath. I invoke the right of witness, she said clearly. Under Section 47 of the Founding Charter, any species participation may observe proceedings and issue formal challenges to rulings they deem unjust. You can ban us from fighting, but you cannot ban us from watching, and you cannot stop us from speaking when we see something wrong. The silence that followed was deafening. Stared at her for a long moment. Then something that might have been a smile crossed his crystalline face. Very well, human. You may observe, but know this. Witnesses who cause disruption are ejected permanently, and witnesses who challenge arbiters directly must face the consequences of that challenge. I understand, said. Do you? Leaned closer, and could see her own reflection fractured 1,000 times in his crystal skin. I have been arbiter for 200 cycles. I have crushed challengers from species that could tear your fragile body apart with a thought. You are nothing but soft meat and brittle bone. Remember your place. Held his gaze without flinching. Thanks for the advice. They were escorted to the observation level, a glass pod suspended high above the main arena. It was clearly designed to keep them separate from the other delegates, a transparent cage that said, "You are here because we allow it, not because you belong." Danny slumped into a seat, his face pale. What are you doing? We were supposed to keep a low profile. Plans change, said, watching the arena below fill with competitors from across the galaxy. You're going to get us killed. Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, Danny, I'm going to get us in. Ben joined them, setting down their bags. So what's the actual plan? Pressed her hand against the glass, watching the crystalline arbiter take his place on the central platform below. First, we watch. We learn. We find out exactly how this tournament works and who's really running it. And then, his eyes never left. Then we show them why should never be underestimated. Trial of valor began at dawn, though dawn meant nothing on a space station. Artificial lights brightened across Meridian Prime, and thousands of spectators filled the arena seats while watched from her glass cage above. The first match was between two species she had never seen before. One looked like a walking tank, a creature with 4 thick legs and armor plating across its entire body. The other was fast and slim, covered in silver scales that caught the light when it moved. They fought for 7 minutes before the armored one pinned its opponent to the ground and the match was called. Watched 12 matches that first day. She memorized fighting styles, noted weaknesses, and paid attention to every detail. Danny sat beside her with recording everything and running it through translation software to catch the commentary from the alien broadcasters. They are favorites to win, Danny said, pointing at the massive 4-armed creatures warming up in the competitor area. They've won the last 6 tournaments in a row, but they have 3 fighters in the bracket, and they've never finished lower than second. Asked. Same species as the crystal beings. They can reshape their bodies into weapons during combat. Filed that information away. What about the insect ones, the ones with wings? Fast and agile, but they struggle in high-gravity environments. There is only 0.6 Earth gravity. The second day brought more matches and more observations. Notice something strange during the afternoon session. A young fighter named was dominating her match against a larger opponent, using her speed and flight ability to stay out of reach while landing precise strikes. Victory seemed certain. Then the gravity in the arena shifted. It was subtle at first, only noticed because she had spent her entire life on a heavy gravity world and could feel the difference in her bones. The arena gravity increased by maybe 10%, then 15%. Swings struggled. Her movement slowed. Her opponent, a ground-based species that didn't rely on flight, seemed unaffected. 3 minutes later, crashed to the arena floor. Her wings crumpled under the increased gravity, and her opponent pinned her easily. The match was called, and medical teams rushed in to carry her broken body away. "Did you see that?" asked quietly. Danny nodded, his face grim. "The gravity spike, it happened right when she was winning." "Check the logs, see if that was supposed to happen." Ben leaned forward from his seat behind them. "You think they cheated?" "I think we need to find out." That night, left the observation pod and made her way to the medical bay. Security was lighter than expected. The guards seemed more interested in keeping humans contained than watching where they went, so long as they stayed away from the important areas. The medical bay was a long white room filled with beds and strange machines that hummed with alien technology. Most patients were sleeping, but found in a corner bed, her broken wings wrapped in some kind of healing gel that glowed faintly blue. The young turned her head when approached. Her compound eyes reflected the dim light like shattered mirrors. "Human," she said, her voice tired. "You are the one who challenged the Arbiter's ruling." She pulled up a chair and sat down. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone dropped a mountain on me," made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh, which is essentially what happened. "The gravity changed during your match. That wasn't normal, was it?" Was quiet for a long moment, then she shook her head slowly. "No, it was not normal, but it was expected." "Expected?" "They have been manipulating the trials for decades," said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Environmental controls, scoring adjustments, bracket arrangements. They ensure that their allies advance and their enemies fall. Everyone knows. Nobody speaks of it." Felt her hands tighten into fists. "Why not?" "Because challenging the Arbiter means challenging the entire Dominion. They control 30% of galactic trade routes. They have the largest military fleet in the aligned sectors. No single species can stand against them, and no alliance has been willing to try." Wings twitched painfully under their wrappings. "So we accept their corruption. We let them cheat. And we pretend that the trial of valor still means something." "What would happen if someone proved it?" asked. "If someone showed everyone the evidence of what they're doing?" Turned her head to look at directly. Under the ancient laws, the Arbiter would be forced to accept a challenge duel. If they refused, they would forfeit all authority and face exile. But the challenger would have to fight himself. And nobody's willing to do that. "Would you be?" asked. "He's been Arbiter for 200 cycles. He's killed challengers from species that make your kind look like insects. No offense meant." None taken. Stood up and looked down at the broken warrior in the bed. "Get some rest, focus on healing." "Why do you care?" asked as turned to leave. "You're banned from competing. You have nothing to gain by involving yourself in this." Paused at the door. "Where I come from, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to win is for good people to do nothing." "And you think you're a good person?" Considered the question. "I think I'm an angry person, and right now that's close enough." She made her way back to the observation pod, where Danny was waiting with his glowing in the darkness. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his fingers were stained with nutrient paste from the ration packs he had been eating instead of sleeping. "I found it," he said before she could speak. "The environmental logs for the last 3 tournaments. Every gravity spike, every temperature change, every lighting adjustment. and I found the betting records that someone tried to delete from the station's financial database. Let me guess, they match up. Danny nodded grimly. Every single manipulation corresponds to a large bet placed through financial networks. They're not just cheating to win, they're cheating to make money. Billions of credits over the last decade. Took thee and scrolled through the evidence. Names, dates, amounts, technical logs, everything they needed to prove what was happening. Can you get this into the broadcast system? She asked. Danny's eyes widened. If we do that, we're declaring war on the Dominion. We're 3 humans on a station full of aliens who already think we're dangerous. They'll kill us. They'll try, agreed. But they banned us because they're afraid of what we can do. Maybe it's time we showed them they were right to be afraid. She looked out through the glass at the arena below, where another rigged match was about to begin. Start working on that broadcast, she said. We're going to need it ready by day 3. Danny stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed and started typing. I really hate it when you get that look in your eyes. Smiled, no, you don't. No, he admitted. I really don't. Championship bout was scheduled for the 3rd day of the tournament. The arena was packed with more spectators than had ever seen in one place. Delegates from 100 worlds filled the seats, their various bodies creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that stretched from floor to ceiling. News drones floated everywhere, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers across the galaxy. On the arena floor below, 2 champions prepared to fight. El was a warrior, 8 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and skin like gray leather. He had won his last 6 matches by breaking his opponents so badly they required weeks of medical treatment. His opponent was a fighter whose purple crystalline body gleamed under the arena lights. Both were considered favorites to win the entire tournament. Stood in the observation pod, watching the crowd settle into their seats. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her breathing steady. Danny had finished his work on the broadcast system the night before. Everything was ready. You sure about this? Ben asked from behind her. No, admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Danny handed her a small communicator. Press the button when you're ready. I've got the system locked. They won't be able to shut you off for at least 3 minutes. 3 minutes, got it. The match began with a clash that shook the arena floor. El charged forward with all 4 arms swinging but danced away, his crystalline body reshaping to deflect each blow. The crowd roared. The news drones swooped closer to capture every moment. Watched for 30 seconds, then she pressed the button. Her voice exploded from every speaker in the arena, cutting through the noise of the crowd like a blade. I invoke the right of challenge against High Arbiter for corruption of sacred proceedings. The arena fell silent. On the floor below, both fighters stopped mid-combat and looked up. In his elevated platform at the center of the arena, rose slowly to his feet, his crystalline body flashing with internal light. You dare! His voice thundered through the speakers, filled with rage. You have no standing here. You are nothing but a witness. Under Section 12 of the ancient laws, any witness who observes dishonor may challenge the officiant, recited, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. The challenge must be answered within 1 rotation, or the officiant forfeits all authority and faces permanent exile. What dishonor could you possibly claim to have witnessed? Smiled, though she knew he couldn't see it from this distance. Danny, show them. The arena's display screens flickered and changed. Instead of showing the paused match, they now displayed data logs, financial records, and technical readouts that Danny had spent all night organizing into clear, undeniable evidence. These are the environmental control logs for the last 12 matches, announced. Every gravity spike, every temperature change, every lighting adjustment has been timed to favor certain fighters and disadvantage others. And these are the betting records that trace back to financial accounts. Your people have been cheating for decades. You've been rigging matches, stealing money, and destroying anyone who gets too close to the truth. The crowd erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. The section began chanting something that sounded like a demand for justice. The started that strange, undulating sound had heard before, the one Danny said meant deep respect or recognition of truth. Raised his hands, but the chaos wouldn't stop. Evidence was playing on every screen, clear and detailed and impossible to deny. Even the news drones were broadcasting it across the galaxy in real time. Finally, the Arbiter's voice cut through the noise again, amplified to a volume that hurts ears even through the observation pod's walls. Enough. The arena fell quiet, but it was the quiet of a storm about to break, not the quiet of submission. Turned to face the observation pod directly. Even from this distance, could see the hatred burning in his crystalline form. You have made your accusation, human. Under the ancient laws, I must answer your challenge or admit guilt. That's correct, Sid. Then I accept. His voice dropped to something cold and deadly. Tomorrow at dawn we will meet in this arena. No weapons, no armor, no assistance. The duel ends when one of us yields, loses consciousness, or dies. I understand the rules. Do you? Stepped to the edge of his platform, his body catching the light and scattering it into sharp fragments. I have killed challengers from species that could crush your bones with a thought. I have fought beings of pure energy and creatures that existed in multiple dimensions at once. You are soft meat wrapped around fragile bones. You will not survive this. Pressed her hand against the glass of the observation pod. I've heard that before. From whom? From everyone I've ever beaten. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, slowly, a sound began to build from the crowd. It started with a clicking noise that spread from delegate to delegate until it filled the entire arena. Danny checked his translation software and turned pale. They're calling you the challenger, he said quietly. It's a title of respect. They haven't used it for anyone in over 50 cycles. Turned away without another word. The match between Elle and was postponed. The crowd began to disperse, but noticed that many delegates lingered, staring up at the observation pod with expressions she couldn't quite read. When the arena was finally empty, Ben let out a long breath. Well, that happened. Slumped into her seat, her legs suddenly weak. The fear she had been holding back rushed through her body in a cold wave. Tomorrow she would have to fight a 9-foot crystalline being who had killed challengers for 200 years. Tomorrow she might die. Danny sat down beside her. We need to talk about strategy. How are you going to fight something made of living crystal? I've been thinking about that, she said slowly. On Earth we have a saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. He's not just big, he's made of rock. Crystal corrected, there's a difference. What difference? Closed her eyes and thought about everything she had learned during her years of training. She thought about physics, about leverage, about the one advantage she had that no other species in the galaxy could match. Crystal is hard, she said finally, but hard things break, you just have to know where to hit them. And you know where to hit her. Opened her eyes and looked at her brother. I know where to hit everything, Danny. That's what being from a means. We spent 4 billion years learning how to kill things stronger than us. It's in our blood. She stood up and began to stretch, working the tension out of her muscles. Tomorrow would come whether she was ready or not. All she could do was prepare. Get some sleep, she told Danny and Ben. Both of you, tomorrow's going to be a long day. What about you? Ben asked. Smiled grimly. I'm going to practice kicking. Dawn came too quickly. Stood in the preparation chamber beneath the arena, wearing simple athletic clothes and no shoes. Her feet were bare against the cold metal floor. She had decided against shoes because she needed to feel the ground beneath her, needed every bit of sensory information she could get. Danny paced behind her, his face pale with worry. There's still time to back out. Nobody would blame you. I would blame me, said. She rolled her shoulders, loosening the muscles. Besides, backing out would mean admitting defeat. Earth would be banned forever and they would keep cheating for another century. Earth being banned is better than you being dead. Turned to face her brother. Danny, listen to me. Our species spent millions of years fighting things with bigger teeth, sharper claws, and thicker skin. We survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and each other. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy, but we might be the most stubborn. She put her hand on his shoulder. I'm not going to die today, I promise. Danny looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he just hugged her. You better not. Mom would never forgive me if I came home without you. Ben appeared in the doorway. It's time. The arena's full. I've never seen so many ships around the station. Took a deep breath and walked toward the arena entrance. The tunnel was long and dark, but at the end she could see light and hear the distant roar of the crowd. Each step brought her closer to either victory or death. The arena floor was harder than she expected, some kind of composite material designed to withstand combat between species that weighed 10 times what she did. The gravity felt normal, or close to it. She wondered if they had considered adjusting it in their favor, then decided they probably wanted to win fairly this time. The whole galaxy was watching. Was already waiting at the center of the arena. He looked even larger up close, nearly 3 meters tall with limbs that ended in sharp points. His crystalline body pulsed with internal light, and when he moved, heard a sound like glass grinding against glass. The crowd filled every seat in the massive stadium. Saw in one section, their wings folded tight against their backs. She saw standing in their designated area, their 4 arms crossed over their massive chests. She saw species she couldn't name, beings of every shape and size, all watching to see what the human would do. High above in the medical bay, watched on a screen with her broken wings wrapped in healing gel. The automated announcer system activated, its voice filling the arena with cold precision. This is a formal challenge duel under the ancient laws. High Arbiter of the Dominion faces Morgan of Earth. The rules are as follows. No weapons, no armor, no external assistance. The duel ends when one combatant yields, loses consciousness, or dies. Do both parties understand? I understand, said, his voice like shattering ice. I understand, replied. Then begin. Attacked immediately. He was fast, faster than had expected. His arm reshaped itself into a long crystal blade as he swung it toward her head, the edge gleaming sharp enough to cut through steel. Ducked. The blade passed over her head close enough that she felt the wind of its passage. She rolled to the side as second arm came down in a hammer blow that cracked the arena floor where she had been standing. Fast, she thought as she scrambled to her feet, but not fast enough. The thing about being from A was that everything on Earth was trying to kill you from the moment you were born. Humans had evolved reflexes that could track a striking snake, reaction times that could dodge a charging predator, and the ability to process danger faster than conscious thought allowed. Had spent her entire life hunting those instincts through military training, combat experience, and years of discipline. To her was moving in slow motion. She dodged his next 3 attacks without difficulty, watching his movement patterns, studying the way his crystalline body shifted and reformed. He was strong, incredibly strong. One solid hit would break her bones, but he was also predictable. Each attack followed logically from the last, a fighting style developed over centuries of facing opponents who couldn't match his speed or power. Nobody had ever made him work for a victory. The crowd grew restless as the fight continued. They had expected blood by now, expected the soft human to fall beneath the Arbiter's crystalline blades. Instead, they watched dance around every attack like water flowing around stones. His frustration became visible. His attacks grew wider, more aggressive, less precise. He was trying to overwhelm her with power instead of outthinking her. That was his first mistake. Stand still and fight me, he roared, his voice echoing off the arena walls. Face your death with dignity. Stopped moving. She planted her feet on the arena floor, felt the solid ground beneath her toes, and took a long, slow breath. "Okay," she said. Paused, surprised by her sudden stillness. "You yield." No, settled into a fighting stance she had learned during her years in the Marines. Her weight balanced on her back leg. Her hands came up to guard her face. "I'm done running. Now we fight for real." The Arbiter's crystalline face twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Finally, a worthy death for you." He charged, both arms reshaping into massive blades, his entire body committed to a single devastating attack. It was the kind of strike that had killed challengers from a dozen species. It was the kind of power that no soft, fragile human could possibly survive. Waited. She watched his approach, calculating angles and timing with a precision that felt almost mathematical. She saw the blades coming, saw the exact trajectory they would follow, saw the opening she needed. At the last possible moment she moved. Not backward, not to the side, forward. She stepped inside his guard, inside his reach, inside the arc of his killing blow. Her shoulder brushed against his crystalline torso as she passed, so close she could feel the cold emanating from his body. For one frozen moment, they stood face to face, the human and the crystal. Then smiled. "You missed," she said. And the crowd went absolutely silent. Spun around, his blades sweeping through empty air where she had been. Was already behind him, already moving to a new position, already proving that everything the galaxy believed about humans was both right and wrong. They were dangerous, but not because they were monsters. Because they refused to give up. The silence in the arena lasted only a moment. Then the crowd exploded with noise, a mixture of shock and excitement that shook the walls. Nobody had ever dodged like that. Nobody had ever made him look clumsy. Nobody had ever smiled at him in the middle of a death match. Kept moving, circling the Arbiter while she waited for her opportunity. Her heart was pounding hard enough that she could feel it in her throat, but her hands were steady and her mind was clear. This was what she had trained for. This was what humans did. They faced impossible odds and found a way to win. Attacked again, more cautiously this time. His blades came in quick, probing strikes designed to test her defenses rather than kill her outright. He was learning, adapting, trying to understand how a creature made of soft flesh could move so fast. Let him get close. She let him think he was figuring her out. She let him believe he was winning. In the observation pod high above, Danny watched with his hands pressed against the glass. What is she doing? She's letting him corner her. Ben stood beside him, his expression unreadable. She's setting him up. For what? Watch. Pressed his advantage. He drove toward the arena wall, cutting off her escape routes one by one. His confidence returned. The human was fast, yes, but she couldn't dodge forever. Sooner or later she would tire, and when she did, he would end this. He didn't notice that had stopped retreating. He didn't notice that she had planted her feet. He didn't notice the slight shift in her weight, the way her body coiled like a spring about to release. Raised both arms for a final killing blow, his crystal blades merging into a single massive weapon that gleamed under the arena lights. Die. Moved. Not away, not to the side, not into a dodge or a roll or any of the defensive maneuvers she had been using. She moved forward, directly into the path of his attack, and she moved with a speed that made everything else she had done look slow. She dropped under his descending blades, her body bending in ways that would have broken a lesser species. Her left foot pressed against the arena floor, anchoring her. Her right leg came up in a perfect arc, every muscle in her body working together in a single explosive movement. Her heel connected with the junction point, where his crystalline head met his neck. Time seemed to stop. Had spent the last 3 days studying the. She had learned that their bodies could regenerate from almost any damage. reforming broken limbs and shattered surfaces in seconds. But she had also learned that there was one spot they could not regenerate: the neural junction, the place where their equivalent of a brain connected to their body. Hit them there and they died. The impact was the loudest thing had ever heard. It sounded like a bomb going off, like thunder trapped in a bottle, like the end of the world compressed into a single moment. 4 billion years of evolution had built Morgan's body into something that could kick harder than any other sapient species in the known galaxy. Her bones were denser. Her muscles were stronger. Her reflexes were faster. And all of that power focused on one tiny spot. His head didn't just break, it exploded. Crystal shards flew in every direction, scattering across the arena floor like deadly rain. His body stood frozen for a moment, arms still raised for an attack that would never land. Then it collapsed, falling to pieces, nothing but inert mineral and shattered ambition. Lowered her leg slowly. Her heel throbbed with pain, and she knew without looking that she had cracked something. Crystalline beings were hard on the feet. The arena was completely silent. Then Danny's voice came over the communicator, barely a whisper. "I think you killed him." "He had the option to yield," she replied. The silence broke like a dam bursting. The section erupted into that clicking sound, the one that meant respect and recognition. They began their undulating chant, louder than before. Even those massive four-armed warriors began to stamp their feet in a rhythm that shook the arena. The delegation screamed for vengeance. They rushed toward the arena floor, their crystalline bodies reforming into weapons, murder in their fracturing forms. But other species stepped in to block them. They spread their wings. They cracked their knuckles. A dozen different delegations formed a wall between thee and the human who had just killed their champion. "The duel was fair," announced the leader, her voice carrying across the sudden chaos. "The human won under the ancient laws. Touch her, and you declare war on us all." They hesitated. They were powerful, but not powerful enough to fight the entire galaxy at once. Walked across the arena floor, her bare feet leaving bloody prints on the composite surface. Her heel was definitely cracked, maybe broken, but she kept her stride steady. She couldn't show weakness. Not now, not when everything hung in the balance. She climbed the steps to the Arbiter's platform and looked out at the assembled crowd. Billions of beings across the galaxy were watching this moment, waiting to see what the human would do next. "I'm not interested in being your arbiter," she announced, her voice amplified by the arena systems. "That's not why I came here. I came here because my people wanted to participate in the galaxy. We wanted to compete, negotiate, and work together with all of you. Instead, we were banned. We were called monsters. We were told that our planet made us too dangerous to be trusted." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Maybe that's true. Maybe we are dangerous. But we're not the ones who rigged the trials. We're not the ones who cheated and lied and stole for decades. We're not the ones who broke a young warrior's wings just to win a bet." Looked toward the medical bay, where she knew was watching. "I have one demand before I give up this position. Earth and its humans will no longer be banned from galactic proceedings. We will compete as equals. We will be judged by our actions, not by our planet's gravity. And if anyone ever tries to cheat again, if anyone ever tries to corrupt these sacred trials, remember what happened today." She stepped down from the platform and walked toward the exit, her broken heel leaving a trail of blood behind her. "There are 8 billion more of us back home," she said over her shoulder, "and some of them kick a lot harder than I do." In the medical bay, laughed through her pain and began to cheer. In the observation pod, Danny collapsed into his seat and started crying with relief. In the delegation, 17 formal protests were prepared, all of which would later be. And across the galaxy, in bars and homes and ships and stations, beings of every species learned a new phrase. They spoke it sometimes in warning, sometimes in admiration, sometimes in fear. "Never ban a Morgan limped out of the arena with her brother and her friends supporting her on either side. Her foot hurt like hell, and she would spend the next month in a medical tank regrowing bone tissue. But she was smiling. Earth was in.